UnitedWay.org/play60 because great things happen when we live united. Are you guys going to do that every time?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Dana and Courtney. You might remember us from our Girls' Night Out Love Shack parties.
And now we are live on the radio. Our show is called
Between the Sheets. Someone was crazy enough to give us our own show.
Rude to be prude, so be careful when you tune in. Everything goes on between the sheets.
You never know what we're going to talk about.
So make sure you visit us on thepowerofvoices.com.
Between the Sheets with Dana and Courtney.
Fun facts, sassy politics, and interesting solutions for life. You'll find it right here on thepowerofvoices.com.
Live on thepowerofvoices.com, the Living Legends Community Show with your host, Greg Bell.
Well, welcome to another evening of the Legends Community Show. Guys, I hope everything is going well for you. I'm on location back in Cali, having a lot of fun, and you can see I kind of been doing a lot of resting because I'm not touching up on the beard at all. Kind of a lot of gray there, man. I didn't know it was going to be this bad. Hope all is well back at the studio, Lee. Things are exciting, man. It's just a full week of sports. If you haven't tuned in to the Legends Show, I'm your host, Greg Bell. And we do a lot of sports talk. That's really what it's about, sports talk. I do talk a little politics with what's going on with Trump right now. How can you not leave some of that out there? But we got a lot of basketball to talk about, guys. You got to talk about LeBron James. Of course, he'll be kicking in full gear coming up this week as they'll be taking on the Boston Celtics. If you didn't happen to catch it just over the past few minutes or so, but they had the NBA lottery draft. I'm going to give you the NBA lottery and give you just the rundown real quick so we can get that one off the table. 14th position went to Miami. 13th position went to Denver. The 12th position went to the Detroit Pistons. And the Charlotte Hornets grabbed the 11th spot. Here's the interesting thing. Sacramento had 2 picks. They ended up with number 10 and number 5. And, of course, it was the Dallas Mavericks at 9, New York Knicks at 8, Minnesota Timberwolves. And I tell you what, that Minnesota team is going to be, picking number 7. They're going to get a quality young guy there to go with a stable of young quality guys that they already have. And it's going to be amazing to watch that team grow. You got Orlando 6. As I said, Sacramento got 5 and 10 spot, Phoenix 4, Philly 3, and the Lakers, our Los Angeles Lakers, fell in the number 2 spot. And believe it or not, the Boston Celtics came out with the number 1 spot. It's going to be real interesting to see what the Celtics do because so much is riding on these top 2 to 5 picks. Because if you look at the NBA and you look at those guys that are coming out of college, all of them are one-and-done guys. And you see one kid who is a Chino Valley kid, and we're going to talk about it just a little bit right now at the top of the show, but Lonzo Ball. Is his dad hurting his value? Is his dad hurting his marketability to the NBA right now? They stayed away from the NBA Combine. And let's face it, NBA Combine doesn't really help a lot of guys. All week long, you've heard what Kevin Durant had to say. Most of the people who looked at Kevin Durant at the NBA Combine laughed at him because he was a skinny kid, couldn't even lift 125 pounds. And they laughed and joked about it, but let's face it, he's the second highest player in the NBA and probably one of the best, one of the top 4 or 5 guys in the NBA. And, of course, we're going to see him in action later this evening. But so much you can talk about that first pick. Boston is in there. They're talking about I believe the kid's name is Mitch. I hate that I'm gonna tear this up, but it's like Fultz. He's out of University of Washington. Got a wingspan of like 6'10". He's about a 6'4", 6'5" guard, but a wingspan of a 7-foot man. And he can do a little bit of everything. Great scorer. Played well for the University of Washington this past year, took them into the Pac-10 finals. But then you got Lonzo Ball, Chino Valley kid, local Southern California kid. He's got a shoe already, and I want to talk about his shoes. We talked about a lot of things with the NBA today. You got Lonzo Ball with a $495 pair of shoe. I want to talk about the 200 to 300 supposedly purchasers of that shoe. The big baller brand ZO2s, which, I mean, everything I've read about the shoe, one, it's got a copyright infringement. Two, it's overpriced. Three, doesn't look like the finest shoe. And four, have they stepped out too quickly? I want to hear all of that from you guys right here on the Legends Community Show. I'm your host, Greg Bell. Thanks for joining me tonight here on thepowerofvoices.com. Like every evening when we're here, we talk a lot of sports. I want to talk about Lonzo Ball and LeVar Ball. Has LeVar killed this kid's opportunities? I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm watching the lottery today. And, of course, while I'm watching the lottery, of course, I got to look at Magic. You know, Magic is sitting on that pedestal. He sat there for that number 2 pick. But on top of that number 2 pick, you know, you're sitting here with a kid who possibly could be bringing, you know, a cancer. I hate to call him that because he's just a dad speaking up on, you know, positively about his son at this point. But think about it. You've got this kid. He's out there. And I mean, he's truly out there in terms of notoriety. Everybody seems to know who he is. And now all of a sudden, you got his dad back there. And let's face it, his dad criticized some of the players that watched him play in college and played with him in college. And now you go into the pros. And of course, you know, guys like Steven Jackson and some of the guys that are there for ESPN have talked about the fact that, you know, the pros won't take kindly to that kind of mouth talk, especially since all of them are elite players. But has his father kind of killed some of his sparkle? You know, he's coming into the league. Everybody knows what he's capable of doing. The kid is a phenomenal player. The number 1 player coming out of high school a year ago, goes to UCLA. He turns that program around. Personally, coming into the season, I thought this was going to be Steve Alford's last year if he couldn't do something with this UCLA team. Now, mind you, he should have been able to do a little bit more than what they did in the NCAA tournament, but they turned that program around, and now Lonzo Ball walks away. Another ball comes in. He's going to get all 3 of them there at UCLA, but now Lonzo comes out. And now do you find him in a position where Magic Johnson is going to take that pick? You know, so much is being talked about with the Lakers. You know, Magic's got so many opportunities. He's got a young ball club. He's got players that he can trade. Does he need to get a guy like Paul George, which, of course, the answer from this host is yes, because they don't have anybody teaching leadership. And I think Magic knows you need somebody to help you along the way. Just like Kareem helped Magic and Worthy helped Magic, you need a little experience to go with the youthfulness and with some of that pizzazz. And we'll get Showtime back here in Los Angeles. But what are the Lakers going to do with that number 2 pick? Because it's over now. We know where they're sitting. They're sitting at the number 2 position. You know, so going into the playoffs right now, so much talk has been on this NBA draft. Well, now the draft is beyond us. We can move on to the next level of the NBA, which, trust me, guys, it's coming. We're going to get there soon. We got another couple more weeks of playoff. But who out there is surprised by what you saw from the San Antonio Spurs? I mean, think about it, guys. The Spurs came out of nowhere. They were up 25 points, man. And then all of a sudden, Zaza does his thing. Leonard leaves the game, and all of a sudden the Spurs go off on a run that you really don't see too often in the NBA of that magnitude. Down 25, and they just went on a shooting spree. Kevin hit, Curry hit, everyone hit, and before we knew it, the Spurs were down. Going to talk about that a little later. Got to talk about the NBA quarterback. You know, who going into this season right now, if you had to judge today, walking away from the basketball scene and jumping into football, sorry about that, but if you were judging the quarterbacks that are on the wire right now, Watson, Trubisky, Kaiser, who do you think is going to have the best season? I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about that coming up. I want to talk about the most obvious. And Lee, I hope you're there with me. got to talk about the comparison. There's been a lot of talk about LeBron James right now, guys. Of course, by the end of this week, he will be the youngest player to reach 50,000 minutes. That just talks about his durability, guys. When you're talking about a guy playing 50,000 minutes before the age of 32, man, that just talks about the magnitude, the strength, the quality of his play. But so much has been talked about in comparison now. You're getting the LeBron James, Michael Jordan talk. And I have to ask you, what do you think about the talk right now? Who is the better player at this stage of his career? And you got to remember, this is about the time in Michael Jordan's career where he started taking some time off to do some baseball, make some movies. LeBron is going to continue playing, I think. I don't think he's going to decide to go play football because he was a hell of a high school football player back in Akron. But Michael Jordan was a great baseball player when he was coming up in North Carolina, so he decided to take his chance on the baseball diamonds. But let me ask you this question. If you had to ask, who is the greatest player? Are you going to compare the two, Jordan versus LeBron James? I pulled a sound clip, and Lee, maybe we can share that with him. Here's what Michael Jordan had to say about the comparison.
People always debated, who's the greatest player of all time? Dumb question. It should be, who's the greatest team of all time? There are so many teams to choose from. The 91 Chicago Bulls, sorry, Showtime. The 92 Bulls, back-to-back. 93 Bulls, first three-peat. 97 Bulls, even with the flu. 98 Bulls, no push-off. And my favorite, the 96 Chicago Bulls. 72 wins. Tough to beat that. What? You think there's someone else? Prove it.
I love it, man. I love it when you get the master, the GOAT himself giving you the comparison. And you know what? He made a valid point. I tell people all the time, when they're trying to compare who's the greatest running back, everybody has a favorite. Everybody who is a Michael Jordan and aficionado, they know all his stats. They know everything about Michael Jordan. There's no way in this world you're going to be able to look at them and say, well, LeBron James got those stats. He's already matched those stats, and he did it 2 years early. It doesn't make a difference. I think Mike makes a valid point. We spend so much time talking about individual accomplishments. I think a lot of times we tend to forget that this is an individual game that is a game of a team magnitude. There's no more individuality. So all of a sudden you got players trying to compare, the 1980 player versus a 2015 or 17 player. It's impossible. But the one thing I think Michael Jordan makes a valid point when you start talking about comparison, you can compare teams because bottom line is championships are comparable. Now, you can't compare what team might beat the other. It's just not fair. But the bottom line is when you start talking about the greatest player, sometimes you got to see what that greatest player was able to do. I think so many times, when you start talking about the greatest big man, my heart goes out to Shaq because I watched everything he did. Now, was he a better free throw shooter than Wilt? No. Did he have a better signature move than Wilt? Maybe not. Nobody had a greater signature move than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But to compare those three really is not right, because the one thing that you can compare is how they helped their team win a championship. And I think when you start to make the comparison between LeBron James and Michael Jordan, it's really not going to start until he wins 6. And in my mind, honestly, guys, I don't know if you can really ever compare those 6 that LeBron James could possibly get to the ones that Jordan just went through for us. I mean, because let's face it, a three-peat is incredible. And to take a team and you're the best player in the league and you're able to take your team to that magnitude, it's beyond imaginable. So until LeBron James can actually take and do a three-peat with, say, Cleveland, he wasn't capable of pulling off the double in Miami, but he came close. I mean, 2 out of the 3 ain't bad. But a three-peat will start this, I think at that point he starts to actually climb on the ladder to discussing who's the greatest player. It is never going to be decided because I think probably at the end of LeBron James's career, his points, his assists, his blocks, his minutes, everything is going to be further than Mike's, mainly because he started earlier and he'll probably stick with one thing for 20 years, like Kobe Bryant. And the difference in Kobe Bryant probably and LeBron James is, I think it's just the physical nature of their body. LeBron James, he's just a physical specimen at 6'7", 245 or 50 pounds compared to when, Kobe was, LeBron came in at 235, 240. Kobe came in at like 205 pounds at 6'7". So it's a difference in terms of the chemistry of their body. But, talking about basketball, I want to talk about it because I'm sitting here on the corner of my eye. I got the game on and I'm watching Golden State and the Spurs. And I got to ask you this question. Like, it's been the number one question since since Sunday. Does Zaza commit a foul? An illegal foul? Should the league have taken some sanctions against him? Should they have done something against what happened? And the only thing I can tell you is, I grabbed a clip from what the coach had to say. Pop had this to say about Zaza's foul on Leonard.
A two-step lead with your foot closeout is not appropriate. It's dangerous. It's unsportsmanlike. It's just not what anybody does to anybody else. And this particular individual has a history with that kind of action. You can go back and look in Dallas games where he got a flagrant 2 for elbowing Patty Mills. The play where he took Kawhi down and locked his arm in Dallas and could have broken his arm. Ask David West, his current teammate, how things went when Zaza was playing for Dallas and he and David got into it. And then think about the history he's had and what that means to a team, what happened last night. A totally unnatural closeout that the league has outlawed years ago and pays great attention to it. And Kawhi's not there. And you want to know how we feel about it. You want to know if that lessens our chances or not. We're playing very possibly the best team in the league. We don't know what's going to happen in the East. And 9.75 people out of 10 would figure the Warriors will beat the Spurs. Well, we've had a pretty damn good season. We've played fairly well in the playoffs. I think we're getting better. And we're up 23 points in the third quarter against Golden State. And Kawhi goes down like that. And you want to know if our chances are less, and you want to know how we feel? That's how we feel. He would have played, and they'd have ended up winning. I go get dinner, have a glass of wine, wake up the next day, go to practice, and move on. But this is crap. And because he's got this history, it can't just be, it was inadvertent. He didn't have intent. Who gives a damn about what his intent was? You ever hear of manslaughter? You still go to jail, I think, when you're texting and you end up killing somebody. But you might not have intended to do that. All I care is what I saw. All I care about is what happened. And the history there exacerbates the whole situation and makes me very, very angry. But I'm still open to follow-ups.
I love Pop, man. That's just, you know what? That's probably more words than I've ever heard him give one interview. You want to talk about an upset coach. He started out, of course, fuming. But, of course, the Spurs and the Warriors are playing right now it's sitting in home. And, of course, Kawhi Leonard is out. And so much is being said. I want to know what your feelings are about it. Did he understep Kawhi? And did he do it on purpose? Because I pulled another sound clip, and this is probably the most honest clip that you're going to hear about this whole undercutting, and that's from Jalen Rose.
I did it to Kobe Bryant, 2000 NBA Finals. Had he gotten injured, we probably would have won the championship. Zaza Pachulia must give the shooter room to come down. He did not. I've been there. I'm speaking from experience. And you see how my basketball karma caught up with me 81 times.
Yeah, Kobe did get you back, brother.
All right, guys. So there you have it. I mean, you can't be more honest than what Jalen Rose. Jalen Rose said he did it to Kobe Bryant. So when you're looking at what you're seeing with Zaza, you're seeing something that's outlawed, it's illegal, and it's going to change the face of this game. You know, the Warriors will probably dominate the Spurs tonight the way they did in the fourth quarter earlier for game one. But the sad thing is, how surprised were you when you saw that the team was trailing the Spurs in the fourth quarter by 23? I mean, we've been talking about this for the last 3 weeks. I hate to say it. How soon can we get the Warriors to the Cavs and get this series started? Get the finals on the way. It's been a long season. It seems to be even longer. But here we are, game one. Spurs are winning by 23 going into the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, Kawhi Leonard goes down. And something else jumped into my mind when I saw him go down. And when you see the end of that game, it brings up probably the most valuable question there is. Who is the MVP of the NBA? Did we just happen to see someone go down and his mere presence of leaving the game with like 10 minutes left in the quarter, the team fell apart? Is Kawhi Leonard the most valuable player in this year's NBA season? We've been talking about Harden. We've been talking about Russell. And, you know, Kawhi Leonard has had a steady, strong, quality year for the Spurs. But if I didn't see a most valuable player go down this past weekend, I don't know what I saw. I mean, this guy literally, his presence on the court changes the court. I mean, think about what he did to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, I think they said, had like 9-10 points in the first three quarters and then went off for 34. When Kawhi Leonard got off of him, because he's trailing Kevin the whole game, he's mirroring. He is the defender against Kevin Durant. And you watch Kawhi go down, and all of a sudden, the gates open up. Kevin goes off. Curry's already hitting his three, and the team comes back from nowhere. This was a team that was pretty much, the game was over. They were down by 23, and had Kawhi not gone down, probably 6-7 minutes into that fourth quarter, they were going to probably start to pull guys to give them a little extra rest and try and get their heads back into it. But man, watching Kawhi Leonard go down like that, it just brought up a question. Is this Golden State team better than their past 73 win team? You know, we talk about the way the Cavs were able to dominate them last year in the playoffs and win the championship. But man, this was, you know, that game, when I watched it and I rewatched it, it brought up a little questions. Have we kind of prejudged this Golden State Warriors team? So much is going to be found out over the next 2 days. I think they'll get a big win here tonight, but Kawhi Leonard will probably be ready by the end of the week. And when he's ready, I want to see what they do when they go back to San Antonio. He'll have plenty of rest because he's going to sit this one out. If I were the Pop, I probably would have already put him on the plane and told him to go on back home and get ready. But so much is going to ride on how well he comes back from this injury. And at this point, you got to start questioning Zaza. This is a big man. He knows what the rules are. And if you watch that play clearly, he took 2 steps in. The first one I can adjust with. He took a jump at the ball, but that little extra hop skip up underneath him, Jalen Rose said it the best. That's what they've been taught to do since they were small. And it blows my mind that at this level, there was just a slap on the hand. He got a foul. There wasn't a flagrant. He didn't get removed from the game. Nothing happened, but one man had to hobble off to the floor. So much riding on this game. We just have to continue to watch, see how the Spurs play tonight without Leonard, and see if they're able to put themselves back in contention. Talking some football with you. You're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. I'm your host, Greg Bell, guys, and just a lot of sports going on. Want to talk about NFL. because I almost lost my mind when I read this story. And I don't know if you guys think it's crazy. I think this is probably, it just shows you how far we've come in the National Football League, that they actually will pay you to be overweight. I hate to say it that way, but I read the story about Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy has fought his weight since the day he came out. Heck, the day he probably went into Alabama and they started feeding him well. Eddie Lacy was paid $55,000 to be under 255 pounds. And he weighed in at 253, and he got a bonus for that. And I had to say to myself, what the hell is going wrong with this world? We're paying him to be overweight. And I mean, 255 is overweight. 245 for this young man is overweight. 235 is probably closer to his playing weight, and he probably should be about 230. But they gave him $55,000. That's more than probably the average medium in Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin well enough. A lot of people ain't making $55,000, $60,000. Cost of living is nowhere near that level. They paid him $55,000 to be 253 pounds. And I had to say to myself, what's going wrong with Pete? This is a guy, I know they want him to be the end zone kind of runner after, losing a Super Bowl 2 years ago with the pass on the 1 yard line. They want a big bulldozer to run the ball in the end zone. They should have kept Marshawn Lynch and this wouldn't have been a question. But Seattle, what is going on with Seattle right now? They paid $55,000 so that he would be 253 pounds. And on top of that, I got to ask you, Seahawk fans, what is going on? You're bringing in 2 quarterbacks. One, I think, still has a little talent. The other one, I don't know what's going on with him. Seattle, of course, bringing in Robert Griffin III and Colin Kaepernick, both of them to be potential backup spots to Russell Wilson. Now, Kaepernick makes a lot of sense to me in that offense. Robert Griffin Jr. makes no sense to me at this point. Only reason I say that, and there's nothing if you're a Robert Griffin Jr., the third, I don't know what he calls himself. He changes all the time. Either way, if you're a Robert Griffin fan, when he first came out, he was perfect for their system. But this is a guy who doesn't know how to run anymore. And I don't mean physically run. I'm talking about run the ball, advance the ball in the National Football League. He doesn't know how to slide. He doesn't know how to get down. And all of his issues have aroused about his health, not about his playing. When he was in his game and in his peak performance, Robert Griffin III was probably the most exciting quarterback I had seen in a long time. He turned a lot of plays his rookie year and turned them into fabulous works of art. But he don't know how to slide. And now he's going up to Seattle. I see Seattle probably more than likely signing Kaepernick. I mean, tell me what your thoughts about that. If you're a Seahawk fan, you think this guy is the guy for the Seahawks? You think he's going to make a difference? Kaepernick, I think he could be a quality backup for the Seahawks. I'm not so sure about Robert Griffin Jr. right now. I'm just scared that this guy has been sitting up on that plate. Every year it's the same thing. And I'm not going to tell you, because I heard this a lot in my early years, oh, he's injury prone. There's no such thing as injury prone. I mean, I don't think God sits up on a pedestal and says, oh, I'm going to give him a broken leg this year. And, next year we'll tear a knee. And no, that doesn't, the fact of the body is that some bodies can take the punishment, some cannot. And injuries are a part of the National Football League, unfortunately. It's a very reckless game. And if you play it with a reckless abandon, which you're supposed to play, anything can happen to the body. Unfortunately, the difference in a Hall of Famer sometimes and a all-pro player is who got out of his career injury-less, I should say, because nobody leaves not injured. It's impossible. This game is too hard on the body. We get beat too down too hard. So everybody is going to leave with some kind of injury. It's who has the lesser of the greater evil, I guess I can call them. And that's probably something you got to think about with Robert Griffin Jr. Kaepernick has been lucky. He had the shoulder surgery. People are talking about his shoulder's not the same. I can't really say yes or no whether the shoulder's the same because let's be honest, guys, we're not in practice every day to watch him. But I can tell you this. I think he still has the physical tools to be a dominating quarterback in the National Football League and put all the kneeling and the national anthem and the criticizing, put all of that aside. I still think Kaepernick has tools that if coached properly, you can pull the best out of this guy. And I think a lot of times when you think about him in San Francisco, one of the most important things that everybody always flies by is that Jim Harbaugh left. And Jim Harbaugh was the one who took the chance with him and was teaching him the tools that he had. And I think Jim makes a difference in the coaching. And I know he makes a difference in the motivation. And I think part of the reason we saw a different Colin Kaepernick is the fact that Jim Harbaugh wasn't there and we weren't seeing Jim Harbaugh's system. It's just something that you have to put in the thought process and stop jumping over and talking about what he did and what he didn't do and how he stood and he didn't stand. Colin Kaepernick still has some tools, guys. I just think he has to be coached extremely well to pull those tools out. Now, let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. You're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the powerofvoices.com. I'm your host, Greg Bell. We talk a lot of sports, guys, and right now I want to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, talk about LeBron James. One thing that has been talked about LeBron this whole offseason is the amazing playoff run he's having right now. He's averaging 29 against Boston solely, but more importantly, he's averaging about 59% shooting rate now, and somewhere close to 30 plus from the three. And that's not a typical LeBron James. And I think that's why so much of the talk this past 2-3 weeks has been on the comparison of Michael Jordan, because there's one thing I think that you can compare them on is their killer mentality. When you look at LeBron James, he turns on a new switch when he gets to playoffs. And that's something the only person I think I can say did that better, or at this point better, is Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant was a fierce playoff player. I mean, he raised his game to a whole new height. And I think when you look at Kobe, when you look at LeBron, when you look at MJ, you're seeing guys that understand that this is a magic moment in their life, and they're going to play it to the utmost, to the best that they can provide. Not only provide for themselves, but uplift their team. One of the things I think that's best for LeBron, and I can't say, I'm not going to say you didn't see it with Kobe and Michael, but you see the level of leadership, I guess you could say, the way he takes an average player and really makes him a quality player in the playoffs. Not that they don't do it all season long, but it's obvious they don't. They're coming in the second seeded team against Boston. Many people don't even have Boston to win, getting through the first 4 games. But Boston is the number 1 seed going into this weekend's playoff. And I tell you what, if you're a betting man, don't listen to Las Vegas. Vegas has got them a plus 425, Boston Celtics, and he's got the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns. I'm sorry about that. But the Cleveland Cavaliers are like a minus 700. Now, if you're not a bettor, let me give you the understanding of what I just said. For every $100 you bet, if the Cleveland Cavaliers win, you make $14.25. But for every $100 you bet, you'll win $425 if the Boston Celtics win. So the odds are the money is flying into Vegas right now on the Cavaliers. And let's be honest, it should be. LeBron is having a great playoff. But let's face it, no one had the Celtics beating the Wizards. Wizards got off. They got up 2-0. The Wizards looked like they were playing the best ball they've been playing in years. And all of a sudden, Isaiah Thomas, because the death of his sister, because the emotional highs and lows they were going through because of that death, they came out pretty much subdued. And they played to an 0-2 start. But once his mind got back into it, the little guy took over the games. And here's the most amazing part about, the Boston Celtics is their bench player came off the bench and he shocked the world last night. What do you say? This guy comes off the bench, throws in 26 points. Kelly O'Cleef, I want to say O'Cleef. Kelly O'Cleef comes off the bench. And, all week we heard what we were expecting from Isaiah Thomas, Smart, Brady, Bill. Everything was talking about the stars. And here a bench player comes off the bench last night for the Boston Celtics, and he shocks the Washington Wizards. The Wizards came into that game believing they had a chance to walk out of Boston. And the most amazing part that they talked about it when the game started was, the Wizards hadn't won in Boston in probably 9 outings. They don't play well in Boston. But this was a different Wizard team. But Kelly came into this game with a whole mentality. I liked his comment at the end of the game where he talked about, the fact that if you didn't come here to give your best and play your best, you shouldn't get off the bench. And I think he came out and just demonstrated confidence beyond confidence. And Isaiah showed the confidence because in big moments, generally it was Isaiah that was going to take the three. They gave the ball to O'Cleef, I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it up, but, that's what happens when you get so many. And I don't know about you guys. There's so many foreigners in the game in the NBA. It's almost starting to seem like a completely world league team out there. It's just so many guys. You can't pronounce half of them. Zaza, Kelly. I mean, they're just got so many foreigners. They're dominating and big men that can shoot. This guy is a 6'9", 6'10" forward who shot the three with so much confidence. You couldn't help but take your hat off to the guy. He came out. He played well. He got off the bench. He did what they needed more bench players to do. And what you see out of the Cavaliers bench is that same kind of performance. One of the things LeBron has been great at doing is getting the bench players to play their role, and it's just shocking. So what do you think about, the Boston-Cleveland series is getting ready to kick off? You see Cleveland sweeping? I mean, I talked about it last week that I thought that Cleveland would come into this game, sweep through Boston, get an extra day's rest, and I'm not so sure now. They're going to have their hands full. I think LeBron has had this week off. I mean, let's face it, it takes your rhythm away from you. These guys talk about rhythm, having that rhythm, just the whole rhythm of playing the game. You take a week off and all you do is practice. Sometimes that rhythm leaves the star players as well as the bench players. And for the Cavaliers, they're going to have to get theirs going quickly because, Boston is coming off a really exciting and big win. Many people had them counted out, but Boston comes away with the big win against the Wizards. You're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. My name is Greg Bell. And guys, before I run away from sports, I definitely want to talk about the big news that came out of the NFL today. I don't know if any of you guys heard it, but for the first time in the history of the National Football League, Beth Mowin will be calling the first ever play-by-play Monday Night Football game. Ladies, what do you think about that? There's so much being said about, the sideline hosts, the commentators. You talk to some women, they don't want to hear a woman calling an NFL game. They want to hear what the players or what a man has to say. I want to know what your impressions of this young lady going up into the booth next year, calling the Monday night game. Let's face it. Gruden has his calling. Beth will have her opportunity. Will she bring a spark like, John Madden? Will she have some clever little takes here and there? It's going to be interesting to watch because there's never in the history of the National Football League has there ever been a play-by-play female. You might have a woman in the booth as a color, as an analyst that provides some, expert commentation. Or let's be honest about it, they're always on the sidelines. They give them the mic as a sideline reporter. But the NFL has decided, along with ESPN as well as ABC to allow a female to be in the booth for Monday night. And that's going to be somewhat interesting, man. It's going to be really interesting to see her flavor. You know, we all know what Chucky's flavor is. You know, Gruden has his style. He has his one takes. Nobody has ever been in the booth like Don Meredith. You know, if you don't remember Don Meredith, guys, I'm really dating myself. I hate to say it, but I'm dating myself. But Don Meredith was one of those clever one-line wonder guys, played for the Dallas Cowboys back in the day. You know, he chewed his stoli. You know, he had the chew in his mouth. And Don Meredith could come up with some great one-liners. Howard Cosell. You know, think about it. Al Michaels. All the great names that have set as the play-by-play color for the network. And now, for the first time in the history of the National Football League, big news, man. We got a young lady who's going to be up in the booth calling the most historic night of all nights. And people ask me all the time, Greg, does it really matter? Do you really feel the difference in Monday Night Football? You know, probably next to the Super Bowl, which I never had that opportunity to play in, Monday nights are a special night. You know, they're more special than the Thursday night Thanksgiving game. They're a lot more special than a Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening game. It's something about Monday night, guys, that is just special to the guys who play in it. You know, that's like a showcase of the best of the best. And we know that going in, and you always see something special happen on a Monday night. I don't know why that is. It just does. But that's, you know, that's color commentating at its finest. And seeing a lady going in for the first time in the NFL history, it's going to be pretty nice. I wish her a lot of luck. Maybe we'll, you know, see her taking over the number one spot sometime, you know, in the next decade. Because I got to figure at $6.5 million a year and being the highest paid person at ESPN, John Gruden's probably not going anywhere. You're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. I don't know if any of you guys caught it, but the Miss USA pageant was on this past weekend. And your host, Greg Bell, was, you know, I had to tune in. I've got some history with the USA. Don't want to tell you that history, but those who know me know the history. DC, Cara McLennan. Man, how many Miss USAs do you guys know that are beautiful, intelligent, an engineer, and a chemist? Damn. I guess I'm too old for this one, but man, this would have been a catch. I joke with my buddies all the time. I got a couple of my classmates, man, from our 1980 class. I call them Mr. Moms. They never had to work a day in their life because their wife went and did everything. They did a role reversal. But this young lady was very, very lovely. She's catching a lot of flack because she doesn't want to be called a feminist. She thinks that insurance is a privilege. And it made me think for a second. What do y'all think insurance is? Because I don't know about you guys, but I've had to pay for insurance since the day I walked out of the National Football League. And it's been a privilege of mine that I can afford to pay insurance. Now, mind you, I wish we were in a country like Sweden or Amsterdam, so, you know, back in Holland where the government provides insurance. But they made it that everybody's jumping on her right now because she said it's a privilege. And I thought about it after it was all said and done. Well, you know, insurance actually is a privilege, you know, because it's not afforded to everyone. If it was something that everybody should have, then everybody would actually have it right now. We wouldn't be arguing about Obamacare versus the new Trump policy. We wouldn't be just complaining about insurance. Everybody would have insurance. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't have a job or you don't have the fortitude, or I shouldn't say fortitude, but you don't have the opportunity to purchase insurance, then you don't have the privilege of having quality insurance. And there are a lot of people right now that are frustrated with the administration and where the insurance plan is going. So I don't think I'm going to be a naysayer to what she said, but let's be honest about it. A privileged few, and if one person doesn't have insurance, then that's one person that doesn't have insurance. But there are millions of people here in the United States that don't have insurance. So we can't say that it's something that everybody has, because it's not. You actually have to be privileged to have a job or have a company that pays for your insurance to be able to afford the insurance that everyone thinks that the world should have. And I'll be honest, I think we have to find a way to make it affordable for all. I don't think anybody should have to walk this earth without insurance, especially in what we say is the greatest nation of all. Let's make sure it's great for everybody, because right now there's a few that don't seem to think that way as it is. But so much going on, so much that was a really interesting take. And I don't know, guys, if y'all didn't see this year's Miss USA pageant, they got rid of Donald. They moved it out of Atlantic City back to Las Vegas. And I'm going to tell you, I enjoy watching it, not just because, there wasn't, this is Mrs. USA, not Mrs. America. So the talent side of it was out. So much was put on the answering of the questions, how they looked. But man, I was joking with a friend of mine. She had a Jane Kennedy appearance. And for many of you guys, I'm still dating myself. I know I'm killing myself here tonight. But you go back to 76, and you see Miss Ohio, I think she was. I think Jane Kennedy was from Ohio. This girl had a Jane Kennedy look almost down to a T. And you got to take your hat off to the District Columbia. They've had back-to-back winners last year and this year. And I think this one, Cara, is going to be a good representative for the United States in the Miss World pageant that'll be coming up this coming up in November or October. But yeah, if you didn't check it out, you should have watched it. Google her. Man, beautiful, beautiful Miss America, USA, I should say. Also in the non-football world, on a serious point here, what is going on with Donald Trump? Now, here's where I got to be honest. When I heard the story, I had to say to myself, Donald is I don't think Donald would ever be considered stupid. The guy's a multi-billionaire, allegedly. I know he's a millionaire, but a billionaire, I don't know, but they say allegedly he is. Could you think he would be that reckless in a meeting with others around to actually give American trade secrets away? Here's where I have to tell you, when I hear story like this, I start to wonder, is there a lot of fake news? Are they trying to make up news? Because I can't see this guy being that, in essence, stupid. That if you want to blame me for believing in Trump's intelligence, blame me. But the simple things that you can and you cannot say. And he's holding the highest seat in our army, the highest seat in our politics. He's sitting on the throne as the president of the United States. Not necessarily a throne, but he's on the high chair. Are you telling me his advisors will allow him to make a move that stupid? I don't know, guys. This is where I get a little twisted on the news that comes to the public, because I just can't imagine walking in, and it's almost like, I don't know, you just killed somebody and you walk in and you go, oh, God, there's a body over here. I think he was stabbed with a knife. And, oh, yeah, the knife's over there. I just can't see Trump being this stupid. But that's like everything else. We're going to have to wait and see what kind of transpires with this whole administration and, with the firing of the FBI director. Now it's just, I don't know, at some point I just want our government to just let it run. Let's let this play out. He's in there for the next 3.5 years. Let's let this play out so we can see what we're going to do with the next election. Because if he's able to accomplish anything that he's vocally talked about, I know I'll be happy about some, but just like we talked about the insurance issue, until everyone can afford to have insurance, that's something we just can't continue to let pass to the next administration. You know, Obama put in a best scenario, and let's see if the Donald can improve on that scenario for the next generation. Now, guys, before I get out of here today, I wanted to talk about the man. And I call him the man because I don't know, you know, when I think about pro athletes and the way they've carried their career and the way they've carried themselves, who embodies that all-American look? I mean, you tell me, you give me a name that embodies it, because the guy that I'm going to talk about right now is the guy who truly, for me, and he's a younger, I shouldn't say kid, but he's a younger man than I, but I always had the opportunity. I go back to New York a lot, spend a lot of time cheering for the Yankees, and it brings me to Derek Jeter, who, of course, had the highest of high acclaims garnished to him. And so many people talk about it, you know, being able to, you know, make the Hall of Fame. Derek Jeter's going to make the Hall of Fame. That's not even a question. But it's when you're revered by your owner, revered by the city, revered by your teammates. And was he the best shortstop to play the game? No. I mean, he played with Alex Rodriguez, who many say was a better shortstop, but because of the skills that Alex had, he could easily move to the third base and be a quality third baseman as well. So when you start talking about the All-American boy, I guess you can say, he played for the Yankees for 20 years. One team, 20 years. He was an all-star probably 14 of those 20 years. He won, I want to say, 4 world championships. But more than anything, this guy embodied just true all-American image. He didn't make the mistake in one city. I'll tell you that many people make a lot of mistakes. New York is one of those kind of cities where you don't want trouble to come your way. It just happens to find you. I remember I lived in New York for like 3 years, always during the off season when I was with the Buffalo Bills. And it just seemed like the city never sleeps. Athletes never sleep, because when I was there, you know, you party from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Just so much goes on in New York that could pull an athlete down. But when you look at Derek Jeter, man, did you ever see anything negative in this guy's career? 20 years. He said the right things. He made the right play. Ownership loved, you know, paying him. I mean, that's a hard thing to say, but they never had a contract dispute with George Steinbrenner or even Hank Steinbrenner. He never had an issue that came up that was resolved in the public. And I think, you know, if you listen to, a matter of fact, let's play Derek's retirement speech.
First of all, I just want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, especially my mom, my mother, my sister, and my wife, who is very soon going to be a mother. So happy Mother's Day. I mean, what do you say on a day like this? You know, I'll start it with thank you to George Steinbrenner and the Steinbrenner family for giving me the opportunity to play my entire career for the only team I ever wanted to play for. I want to thank my managers, coaches, teammates, support staff, those of you that are here today, and those of you who aren't, for being with me along that entire journey. I want to thank my family for their love, support, honesty, and more importantly, their presence at everything I did, both on and off the field. and the fans. Wow. I want to thank you guys for pushing me, for challenging me, for making me accountable, but more importantly, for embracing me since day one. You know, I was asked recently by someone, they said, if you could trade places with one person, who would it be? And I say this very humbly, but there isn't a person or player I would trade places with that's playing now or ever. And the reason why I say that is because I got a chance to play for a first-class organization and in front of the greatest fans in the history of sports. And you know, you play here in New York for 20 years. You know, I learned that time flies, memories fade, but family is forever. And I'll be eternally grateful to be a part of the Yankee family. So I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you very much.
Man, you know what? Every time I listen to that, it just makes me say to myself, this guy did it right. I mean, there's nothing you can say negatively about the way Derek Jeter carried himself. Hats off to the Jeter family, to Derek, his wife. Good luck with their firstborn. I mean, he even did that right. I hate to tell you, he waited till his career was over before he decided to say, I do. So he kind of put a little exclamation on a little bit of everything. But, man, you know, I wanted to just give my hat, tip it, you know, like he said, tip the hat for Derek Jeter. The guy is probably one of the most classiest athletes I think I've ever had an opportunity to meet. From a small town in Kalamazoo, Michigan, to the big city of New York. Man, like he said, time flies. It's been a great sharing an hour with you guys, like always. You're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. Tune in to me each week, guys. We're going to talk a lot of sports, have a little laughs, try and give you my perspective on pretty much that which is sports, and more importantly, pro sports. Coming from a pro background that I have, spent 9 years in the National Football League, and I can only tell you, outside of being in New York and playing for the Yankees, it was great being here in Los Angeles playing for the Rams. So let's give the Rams a hand, buy some seats, and get out there to see the Rams this coming season, guys. We got to hope for a lot this coming season. Guys, it's been great sharing tonight with you. Get out. Let me read the draft to you. If you draft people missed it earlier, the Lakers are number 2. Boston got the number 1 spot. Philly 3. Phoenix 4. Sacktown 5 and 10. Orlando 6. Minnesota 7. The New York Knicks are at 8. Dallas is at 9. Charlotte 11. Detroit 12. Denver 13. And the Miami Heat round out the 14 lottery picks. And guys, all I can say is Magic had a lot of smiles tonight. Let's hope his pick at that number 2 position is an impact player. You've been with the Power of Voices, and this has been the Legends Community Show. Talk to you next week, guys.